Imagine a paradise so beautiful that it can distract even the most focused minds. Tucked away in the Atlantic Ocean, off the coast of Africa, lies the archipelago of the Canary Islands. One of its gems is the island of Tenerife. This is a place where the sun kisses the ocean horizon and the sky paints a canvas of colors as day turns into night. It's a destination that draws in travelers from around the world, yearning for a taste of its ethereal allure. Tenerife is a place of contrasts. It's home to Spain's highest peak, Mount Teide, a dormant volcano that towers over the island, its summit often dusted with a veil of snow. Its slopes descend to meet the azure waters, where miles of golden sand beaches stretch out, a stark contrast to the imposing volcanic landscape. The island is a symphony of nature's grandeur, a place where the verdant forests whisper tales of the past and the ocean waves hum lullabies of tranquility. It's a paradise that captivates and enchants, a place where time seems to slow down and the hustle of the world fades to a distant echo. But Tenerife is not just about natural beauty, it's a vibrant mix of cultures, a melting pot of traditions. It's a place where the old meets the new, where quaint villages with cobblestone streets stand alongside modern resorts. It's an island that pulses with life, hosting vibrant festivals that draw in crowds with their infectious energy. And yet, amid all this beauty and vibrance, Tenerife is also a sanctuary of peace. It's a place where the stresses of life can be washed away by the gentle sea breeze, where the mind can find solace in the simple rhythmic dance of the palm leaves. It's a paradise that offers a soothing balm to the soul, a haven that invites you to lose yourself in its tranquility. But even as we marvel at the beauty of this island paradise, it's important to remember that even the most idyllic locations carry their own histories, their own stories. But even paradise has seen its darker days. Two Boeing 747s, KLM Flight 4805 and Pan Am Flight 1736, found themselves on a catastrophic collision course. It was a day of unforeseen circumstances. A torrent of unfortunate events led up to one of the most devastating aviation disasters in history. The island paradise was enveloped in a foggy shroud, a weather condition that would soon play a pivotal role in this tragedy. The airport was bursting at its seams. An influx of diverted flights had caused a chaotic congestion on the tarmac. It was in this chaos that the two doomed flights, KLM 4805 and Pan Am 1736, found themselves in the eye of the storm. Now, let's set the scene. The KLM plane was ready for takeoff, waiting at the end of the runway. Meanwhile, the Pan Am flight was taxiing on the same runway, trying to find its way to the exit taxiway. The fog was so dense that neither plane could see the other, and the tower couldn't see them either. A chilling game of blind man's bluff was in play. Miscommunication became the catalyst for disaster. The KLM pilot, under the impression that he had been cleared for takeoff, started his roll down the runway. Meanwhile, the Pan Am flight was still taxiing on the same runway, unseen in the fog. The air traffic control, unaware of the looming catastrophe, was unable to intervene. Imagine the shock of the Pan Am pilots when they saw the lights of the KLM plane approaching them through the fog. They tried to take evasive action, but it was too late. The KLM plane was already airborne, and despite the pilot's desperate attempt to climb, the undercarriage of the KLM plane collided with the fuselage of the Pan Am plane. In the blink of an eye, 583 lives were tragically lost. A paradise island turned into a scene of unimaginable horror. The foggy weather, the miscommunication, and the unfortunate sequence of events had led to a catastrophe that would forever change the course of aviation history. The crash of the two Boeing 747s on Tenerife's Paradise Island left an indelible scar, not only on the island but in the world of aviation. In the immediate aftermath of the crash, chaos and confusion set the scene. Emergency services rushed to the site, battling against the odds to rescue as many survivors as they could. The wreckage was a vast labyrinth of twisted metal and smoldering debris, a grim testament to the magnitude of the disaster. But amid the devastation, there were glimmers of hope. 61 passengers somehow survived the horrific event, their lives forever marked by the tragedy. The impact on the families of the victims was profound. Over 500 people lost their lives that day, leaving behind loved ones grappling with the sudden and immense loss. The sorrow transcended borders, reaching homes across the globe as families mourned their loved ones, forever lost to the Paradise Island. The shockwave of the crash was felt far beyond Tenerife's shores. News reports flooded the international media, painting a bleak picture of the deadliest accident in aviation history. The world watched in horror and disbelief, struggling to comprehend the enormity of the disaster. It was a shared sorrow, a collective heartbreak that brought together nations in mourning. The aviation community was in shock. The industry, built on the principles of safety and precision, was shaken to its core. Pilots, air traffic controllers, engineers, all who live and breathe aviation, mourned not just the loss of lives, but the scar on their profession. Questions were asked, doubts were raised, and the need for answers and accountability became paramount. And then there was Tenerife. The Paradise Island turned into a scene of devastation. The islanders, known for their warm hospitality and joyous spirit, found themselves hosting a tragedy of unprecedented scale. The island was in mourning, its paradise lost to the ashes of the crash. The Paradise Island was in mourning, the aviation world in shock. The investigation into the crash of KLM Flight 4805 and Pan Am Flight 1736 was meticulous, thorough, and full of lessons. The investigation commenced almost immediately after the crash, led by aviation experts and seasoned investigators. Their job was to piece together the events leading up to the disaster, to understand what went wrong and why. The findings were stark and pointed to several critical errors. The first and perhaps most glaring mistake was a misunderstanding between the KLM pilot and the control tower. The pilot believed he had clearance for takeoff, while the control tower thought the plane was only moving into position. This miscommunication was compounded by poor visibility due to the dense fog that had descended on the Paradise Island that day. The Pan Am flight was still taxiing on the runway, invisible to the KLM pilot due to the fog. By the time the KLM pilot saw the Pan Am plane, it was too late to avoid a collision. But the investigation didn't just stop at identifying the mistakes, it delved deeper into why these errors occurred in the first place. It found that there were systemic issues in the aviation industry that needed addressing. For instance, the cockpit culture at the time discouraged co-pilots from questioning their captains. This lack of assertiveness was identified as a contributing factor to the crash. The KLM co-pilot had doubts about the takeoff clearance but did not voice them strongly enough. The investigation led to sweeping changes in aviation. Cockpit procedures were overhauled to encourage a more open and collaborative culture. This change became known as cockpit resource management, a system that is now standard in aviation worldwide. Training was also improved, with greater emphasis on communication and decision-making under pressure. Air traffic control protocols were tightened to eliminate any room for misunderstanding. The lessons learned from this tragic event have helped to make aviation safer. The legacy of KLM Flight 4805 and Pan Am Flight 1736 is a stark reminder of the importance of constant vigilance, clear communication, and the courage to question authority when necessary. The Tenerife airport disaster, as it came to be known, was a stark reminder of the fragility of life, even in a paradise like Tenerife. As we delve deeper into the lasting impact of this tragic event, we find a profound reshaping of aviation safety. In the wake of the catastrophe, numerous changes were implemented worldwide. The crash served as a catalyst for the aviation industry to reevaluate and overhaul safety measures. Today, stringent protocols are in place to ensure clear communication between the cockpit and air traffic control, a direct outcome from the lessons learned from the Tenerife disaster. Memorials dot the island, silent yet powerful reminders of the lives lost. One in particular, a sculptural monument called the Spiral of Life, stands tall in the heart of Tenerife. It's a place where survivors, families of victims, and visitors can reflect, remember, and pay their respects. Each twist and turn of the sculpture serves as a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the capacity to heal and grow from tragedy. The stories of the survivors are poignant reminders of the human ability to endure and overcome. They speak of courage, resilience, and the will to survive, offering a glimmer of hope amidst the darkness of the disaster. Their stories continue to inspire, providing a human connection to the event that transcends generations. On the island, the crash is remembered with solemn reverence. Each year, on the anniversary of the disaster, a moment of silence is observed across Tenerife. The island's inhabitants pay their respects, their collective memory serving as a powerful testament to the enduring impact of the tragedy. The worst plane crash on a paradise island serves as a grim reminder that even in the most beautiful of places, tragedy can strike. In memory of the 583 lives lost on that fateful day in Tenerife,